What up, folks? Back with another project breakdown, and this one is a file organizer, and I'm going to be doing this one in Python as per usual. With this one, given a folder on your local computer, this tool is going to organize files by file type and really by file extension. So I'm going to feed a folder path into the code, and what it's going to do is it's going to go into the folder specified by the path and organize the files really by their file extension. And if you don't know what a file extension is, in Windows, it is the last characters after the last dot. So the characters after the last dot, that's a better way to say it. Like the .exe, .doc, .pdf, these are file types. .mp3, and these file types specify what kind of file the data inside contains, whatever the hell else we want to say. This program is going to create a folder for each file type. Document files, image files, video files. I've got several of them here, and you'll see it's in a dictionary. I've got a dictionary mapping the file type to several file extensions, because as we know, you have several different kinds of file extensions that map to certain types. Like for images, you'll have PNGs, JPEGs, GIFs or GIFs, whatever the hell you want to call them. Those are all image files. So I have a dictionary that maps the type to the file extensions. And when it's all said and done, it's going to create a report of the files moved. So it's going to do it awesome, and then it's going to tell you what it did. And now I'm going to show you a file that definitely, or a folder that definitely needs this file organizer. It definitely needs it. It's on my local system here. It is my downloads folder. Take a look at this sucker, and it is a littered landscape of stuff. And what the file organizer is going to do is it's going to go in here, tidy it up, and put it into separate folders based on the file type. And it's going to be nice. I'm going to run this a little bit later so you can see the awesomeness of this tool. But for now, I'm going to get into the approach that I'm going to take. Let's check out the approach here. I'm going to use the modules of OS and shutil from Python to do my thing in this project, this file organizer project. I'm going to use OS for file pathing. Really, I'm going to get the file path. The user is going to supply the file path, and then I'm going to use OS to find the file path on the system, or the folder path actually, on the system, and then start gathering up the files that I will then classify by file type. I'm going to use shutil, almost sounds like a curse word. I'm going to use shutil for file moving. So once I've rounded up all the files, I'm going to move them into subfolders using shutil. And if you don't know, I'll tell you a little bit about OS. The OS module generally contains functions to interact with the underlying operating system in a platform-independent way. So no matter if you're using Windows, Mac, Linux, you're going to use the same OS functions to interact and do things on these systems. shutil contains utilities for various file and directory operations. Really going to go to this if you're going to need to copy, to move, to delete, create directories, remove folders, shutil is going to be your friend in that scenario. And definitely we will be using it to move the files into the subfolders. I also end up using a few dictionaries to facilitate some operations. The first one I do, or I use, is one to map the various file extensions to the file types. This is really the beginning of the classification, where I'm going to take, I take several file extensions that I want to identify and put them under separate headings. So like JPG, PNG, blah, 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 image files, MP3 wave, audio files. And I'll actually take a second to show you the actual dictionary that I'm going to use for this. Dictionary called file underscore, I don't need to say that. And so it's got a string key and a list of strings for the value, mapping many file extensions to one type under one heading. The other one I'm going to use is I'm going to map the actual files to file types. So really in all three of these dictionaries, the file type is going to be the key. So there's going to be some symbiosis there, and they're actually going to work together in the code. So once I round up the various files, I'm going to classify them by file type using a dictionary like this, where it is string key and the value is going to be a list of strings. And the other, yet another dictionary that I'm going to use is I'm going to map the subfolders to the file types. So I'm going to create separate subfolders, of course, to copy these files into. And I'm going to create a dictionary where the key and the value will be singular things. The key will be the type, and the value will be the actual path of that subfolder. So there's a little bit about the approach. Now let's get into the code. Okay, let us move forward and check out this code. We're nearing the climax, folks. Not quite there yet. Looking at the first two lines, we're importing OS and shutil as stated before. Definitely need these to perform some operations later on. Lines 4 and 5, these are going to be related to the move report log file, where these two variables are going to be central in creating the log file of items moved to subfolders. These are going to help create a move report, and the move report is going to show you each file that was moved and then how many files were moved at the end. We've got an integer equaling 0 and a string, empty string, and that move report string, as files are moved, that is going to be concatenated with the next file, the next file, the next file. I'm going to build it as the moves happen, and then at the end I'm going to write it to a file. So really write that one string to a file. That's going to be the log called move report. Then on line 6, things get kicked off with the input function and creating a prompt to enter the folder path. This is where you're going to enter the path to the folder that you want to clean up with the file organizer. Then we got to try and accept. Try and accept this one, folks. Yeah, the try and accept. Of course, you're going to do this. You're going to use the try and accept in a situation where you're going to execute some code that may cause an exception, like if it goes wrong. What I'm doing that may cause an exception is I'm going into the file system and getting information about a directory and going through and checking out files. So a lot of this stuff could be problematic. If I go in there, if I'm given a path to a folder doesn't exist, or I don't have permissions to it, stuff like that, it's gonna cause an exception. And so I've got it in the try block, and specifically what I've got in a try block is I am creating a list of all the files in the folder. So I'm using OS list directory, that function, supplying it with the path in my for section of this. And this is list comprehension, by the way, if I didn't mention that. Creating a list on one line using a for loop and populating it at the same time, all that jazz, trying to be Pythonic. You know what I'm saying? So I'm looping through the list of all the files in the folder. And if the current file, as I iterate, if the current file is a file and not a folder, that's an important distinction, because I'm not doing anything with folders. Subfolders are just going to be left as is. I'm only concerned with files, cleaning up files. So if I encounter a file, what I'm doing is I'm placing that file name in my list in lowercase. So after this, I'm going to have a list of files in the variable files. The except is going to be if there's an issue with the folder. If there's an issue with the folder, I'm going to print an error message, and then we're going to skedaddle. I'm going to bail. I'm going to exit the program using the exit function. Moving down here a little bit, looking at lines 12 to 21, I'm checking out, or I created the first dictionary that I'm going to use. This is a dictionary mapping a file type, like images, documents, code, whatever, mapping a file type to many file extensions. So this is about the classification. This is going to help me group files of the same type together. And I continue on that logic on line 23, where with this files by extension, I'm creating another dictionary. And then what I'm doing is I'm looping through this dictionary, the one above, I'm looping through that dictionary. And for each key, I'm creating another dictionary that has that key and a value consisting of an empty list. Now, the new dictionary is going to have the same keys as the other dictionary, but its values are going to be a blank list, and what I'm going to put in that blank list will be the actual files for that file type. For example, if I have a key of database down here in this dictionary, the items in the list are going to be actual files that have these extensions, not just the extensions. So it'll be like whatever.sql or whatever.mdb. It's going to be the actual file names. So files by extension is going to be the actual file names that are going to be from this folder. So the first dictionary is the file extensions. The second dictionary is going to be the file names. Important distinction. I think this note here is invalid. I'm not even going to look at it. Line 25. I am now looping through the list of files that I created earlier. The list of file names, actually. So I'm looping through the list of file names, and for each file name, I'm going to check for a dot in the file name. If there is not a dot in the file name, I am not going to process it. I'm only looking for file names that have dots in them because I am concerned with the extensions, the file extensions. And the file extension is the letters after the last dot, So if I don't encounter a dot at all, I'm just disregarding it and I'm going to continue with the next one. Line 28. If there is a dot in it, I'm going to put that file name into a temporary variable called cur file. I guess all variables are temporary, but using this name here. And then line 30, I'm grabbing the file extension from that file. See, current file is a full file name with the name and the extension. Line 30, I have some problems over here. Line 30 is going to extract the file extension from that file name. I'm using R index to get the index of the last dot from the right, and then I'm adding 1 to that index, and then I'm slicing from that portion to the end of the string. So essentially it's going to get the letters after the first letter after the dot, and then the rest of the letters to the end of the string. And then I have an inner loop here where now that I've got my file extension, I'm going to loop through the dictionary containing all the file extensions. I'm going to loop through that dictionary, and we're going to look for this one file extension in the dictionary of file extensions. And if this file extension is in one of the lists of file extensions, I am going to, in my new dictionary, append the current file name to my list of file names in the second dictionary. If you remember the dictionary I created up here, this is the second dictionary, which will contain the file names. It'll map the file types to the file names. And on line 34, I'm adding a file name to that dictionary. And now we move on to the setting up the moving operations, because after this nested loop here, I'm going to have all my file names categorized by file type. And then I'm ready to start moving them once they are classified and categorized. You like that? Okay, line 37, I create an empty dictionary. This dictionary is going to end up holding the file paths for the subfolders that I'm going to create, the full paths. And what I'm going to do in this dictionary is I'm going to map the file types to a path. So like image files will be C:\\, whatever, and the last folder will be image files. So it's mapping the type to the subfolder. And then I'm going to use this dictionary soon to create the subfolders. Because to recap the whole idea here, I'm taking a bunch of loose files, categorizing them by type, and then putting them into subfolders. So here's where I begin to create the subfolders. Line 38, I am looping through my dictionary with the file names. I'm looping through that, and if the length of one of the lists of file names, if the length of the list of file names is greater than 0, if this particular one is, then I'm creating a path string for it in my dictionary. I'm doing the greater than 0 check because if the length of the list is not greater than 0, it means I have no files of that type. If I have no files of that type, I'm not going to bother creating a string for a folder, because I'm not creating a folder for a file type for which I have no files. line 42. I loop through my newly created third dictionary called folder destinations. I loop through it, and for each one, I'm using OS make directories. I'm using this to actually create the subfolder on my file system. So this function is going to create the subfolder according to the value there, really the value that I created on line 40. So I created a path on line 40, and on line 43, I'm creating the actual folder corresponding to that path. Then on line 45, what I am doing is I am looping through my dictionary of actual files once again, and then I'm going a little deeper. I'm going looping through the list that's inside that dictionary for each type. I'm looping through that and going file by file. So this inner loop is going file by file, and it's going file by file because I'm going to now move the files from where they are in the root folder into the subfolder. So I create a string that's going to be the path that this file is going to move into. Actually, no, this is not correct, or that was not correct. I'm getting the current full path of the file that I'm about to move, putting it into file path. So the file path is the current path, and then on line 48, I'm calling move, shutil move. This is where shutil comes into play. It might be the only part where it does, but yeah, I'm calling move, and I'm going to move the file from its current location to its new location. Folder destinations has the path of the subfolder. File path has the current path of the file. So I'm going from current path to new path. That's what's going on there. I'm moving. And then I increment my files moved integer because I've just moved a file. And then I concatenate to my move report. So I'm putting one more entry in the move report because I have just moved a file. Interesting how that works, right? And then once this loop is over, all of my files have been copied. And once all my files have been copied, I add once again to the move report. I put a line at the end that says how many files have been moved using the files moved variable. And lines 54 and 55 close it out, because what these do is I'm creating a file called move report.txt in the current folder in the root, as I call it. I'm creating that, and then I'm writing the move report log string to that file, and that closes it out. Nice, neat, in a little package. And once you run this thing, you're going to have an organized folder. You're going to be saying Dean is awesome. He's the man. And quite frankly, yes, I am. All right, let's keep it moving. Next, we are going to take a look at the actual execution of this project. Drum roll, please. Now, for the moment we've all been waiting for, it is time to execute the file organizer code. And I'm dropping you here because I want to show you, remind you about my downloads folder. That is a littered landscape, and I'm going to run the file organizer on this folder and clean it up. But just want to give you a look, just months, maybe a a year of random files just amassed. Most people's download folders are like this. I even got my driver's license in here. Go ahead and steal my identity. You wouldn't want it anyway. So good stuff. Okay. So yeah, you see the files here. And we got Mike Tyson showing up too. Do a lot of graphic stuff, right? So I'm going to do a split screen here with my PyCharm over here. And of course, this is the code that I just went over, that you just watched me go over. And time to run. Hit run in PyCharm and got the prompt, enter the folder path. I'm going to enter an absolute path. Absolutely. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Go into my profile and it is the downloads folder. Downloads. All right, drum roll please. Let's do it. Oh, okay. A little bit of a stoppage there, but let's take a look at this thing. Now you see things are dramatically reduced as far as just loose files, and you got a bunch of folders. Of course, there were folders there already because it was a littered landscape, as I say. You got 5 loose files now that I didn't account for in my file extension grouping. And as you look here at the top, you got the move report, which I'll look at in a second. And then you have folders that correspond to those dictionary keys that I was showing you. See, looking over here, dictionary keys, images, documents, blah, blah, blah. Don't need to say them all, you see them. And looking over here, they are here. So those dictionary keys end up being the subfolders that the files get copied into. And then I have just the rest of the folders that were already here. Let's look at a couple of these. Oh, there's only 2 audio files in here. I've been using these for YouTube videos. Executables, not too many. But this is definitely a time saver, of course, over selecting, cutting, and pasting, right? Just had to author a little bit of Python code. Let us now check out the move report. As I said, it's going to go into the root of the folder that you're cleaning up. Okay, got my tongue there. All right. So hopefully you can see it. But here's the move report, where it's just listing every file that got moved, or it's file name moved to, and then where it moved to. Let's zoom it in a little bit, just to ensure. I know on TVs this is harder to see, but yeah, file moved to. So it's going to list every single file that it moved. And then let's go down to the bottom. And we have a final message of how many files were moved. 717. So quite a bit. So this is the cleanup of my downloads folder done with the file organizer. And that's it for the project. Have fun with the idea, and I will see, or actually you'll hear me realistically next time.